It started with a shadow. I was walking back from the mailbox when I noticed it. Something just barely visible through the crack at the bottom of my garage door. A bumper. Metallic silver. Not mine. I froze. It was a quiet Wednesday around noon. No workers scheduled, no deliveries. I hadn't opened the garage since Sunday, but someone had, and they were inside. At first I thought maybe it was a mistake. A neighbor backing in by accident, maybe needing to turn around. I hit the garage door button on my key fob. The door rolled open with a groan. There it was, a Toyota Camry, mid-2000s, parked neatly, perfectly, in my garage, like it had been there all week. No driver. Windows cracked just slightly, like someone planned to come right back. But no one did. I stood there for a solid 10 seconds, not sure if I was dreaming. Then I pulled out my phone, opened my security app, and scrolled back through the camera footage. Timestamp, 9:48 a.m. A woman in sunglasses and a massive sun hat steps into frame. I recognized her instantly. She lived 2 doors down, always frowning at mailboxes, always holding a clipboard, always trying to correct someone's trash can placement. Let's call her Linda. Linda marched up my driveway like she owned the place, typed something on her phone, opened my garage door via keypad, my keypad, and drove right in. Calm, confident, like she was entitled to it. Then she walked off. No note, no message, no explanation. Just left her car inside my home, like it was a grocery store parking spot. I was stunned. I stared at the footage again to be sure I hadn't missed anything. Maybe an emergency, an accident. But no, she didn't look panicked. She didn't even glance around. She just parked and left. I was still standing there, hand on my hip, when I heard the clicking of shoes on pavement. Linda, walking back down the sidewalk, phone in one hand, reusable shopping bag in the other, like she'd just returned from an innocent errand. I stepped aside as she turned into my driveway, totally unfazed. "Oh," she said, startled for half a second. "You're home. I live here." "Yes, well," she said, brushing invisible dust off her blouse. "I just needed a place to park for a bit. The street was full, and you weren't using the space." "That's not how private property works." She frowned. "Excuse me? You parked your car in my garage without asking." Linda rolled her eyes. "I only planned to be gone 20 minutes. You weren't even here. No harm done. You opened my keypad." "It's not like it's Fort Knox," she scoffed. "Everyone uses 1234, and I am on the HOA board, so technically I oversee property standards." I blinked. "You think being on the HOA means you can break into someone's house?" "Don't be dramatic," she said. "It's just a garage. And besides, we're neighbors. We should support each other. You weren't even using it." I laughed. A short, disbelieving bark. "That doesn't mean you get to take it." She shifted the bag on her arm. "Look, I'm busy, and I don't have time for theatrics. You can go back to whatever you were doing. I'll be out in a moment." I stepped in front of the car. "No, you'll move it now." Linda narrowed her eyes. "You're being extremely aggressive right now. I don't feel safe. You broke into my garage." "I accessed it," she corrected, holding up a finger. "As a temporary necessity, if you have an issue, you can bring it up at the next HOA meeting. You're lucky I'm not calling the police." That got her attention. Her nostrils flared, but she smoothed her tone. "There's no need to escalate. I'll be out of your way shortly." She reached into her bag, pulled out her keys, and walked toward the car like nothing had happened. I stood to the side, stunned into silence. She backed out slowly, smug smile on her face, and rolled down the window. "I'd appreciate a little more understanding next time," she said. "We're a community after all." Then she drove off, like that was the end of it, but it wasn't. Because the second that garage door clicked shut behind her, something in me snapped. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was entitlement, a violation, and she'd done it with a smirk. I walked straight into my office, pulled the footage, labeled it, and dropped it into 3 email drafts. One to the HOA, one to the local police department's non-emergency contact, and one to myself, for safekeeping. And just in case Linda thought this was over, she had no idea what I was willing to do to protect what was mine. If you've ever dealt with someone who thinks the world revolves around them, someone who thinks your boundaries are optional, you're going to want to hear what happened next. Hit that like button, drop a comment if you've had a Linda in your life, and don't forget to subscribe, because next time she parks her car in my garage again. And this time, I don't let her out. I didn't expect her to come back. I thought maybe, after our last interaction, she'd at least knock. Maybe slide a passive-aggressive note under the door. Maybe complain to the HOA. But 2 days later, I heard the garage. The sound of the door lifting snapped me out of a deep sleep. I sat up, groggy, thinking I must have rolled over on the remote. Then I heard the engine. Soft, low, familiar. I walked to the window. There she was, Linda, pulling into my garage. Again. No rush, no panic. Just like it was hers. Same car, same smug calm. Except this time, I was wide awake. I threw on jeans, grabbed my phone, and hit record before I even made it downstairs. I stepped into the garage just as she was locking her car door. She jumped a little when she saw me. "Oh, you startled me," she said, hand to her chest. "Didn't expect you to be up this early." "It's 7 a.m. Well, some of us have real responsibilities." "You really just let yourself in again?" Linda gave a sigh, like she was exhausted by me. "I have an appointment downtown," she said. "All the street spots are taken because the landscapers are hogging the block. And frankly, I'm tired of circling. This is easier for both of us." "No, no, it's not. Let's not make this a thing," she said. "It's just temporary." I pointed to the blinking red light on the wall camera. "You understand this is being recorded?" "I'm not doing anything illegal," she snapped. "You're trespassing. This is shared space." "No, it's not. It's my garage." Linda crossed her arms, head tilted like she was dealing with a child. "You're overreacting. It's literally an empty room when you're not using it. You broke in, again." I entered. Calm down. That word, entered, like she was some kind of diplomat instead of a suburban menace, made my blood boil. "Move the car." She didn't. "Now," I said. Linda took a step toward me. "If you continue harassing me, I will contact the HOA and report you for intimidation. I have rights." I didn't answer. I didn't yell. I just pressed the garage door button on the wall. The motor whirred. The door began to close. Linda's face twisted. "What are you doing?" I shrugged. "Securing my property." She rushed for the car, fumbling for her keys. Too late. The garage door slammed shut with a metallic thud that echoed through the house. I stood still, heart pounding. I heard her trying the driver's side door, muttering to herself. I imagined her face, red, panicked, trapped in the car like a wild animal that wandered into the wrong yard. She started banging on the inside of the windshield. I walked into the house, dialed 911. "Hello," I said calmly. "I need to report an unauthorized vehicle on my property. The person is currently inside my garage, refusing to leave." Dispatch asked if I felt threatened. "No," I said, "but I do feel violated." The officer was there in less than 10 minutes. Young guy, calm, asked me to open the garage so he could talk to her. I did. Linda was standing next to the Camry, arms flailing, clearly mid-rant. "Thank God," she cried. "This man locked me in like an animal." The officer looked at me. I said nothing, just handed him my phone with the footage. She saw that and froze. "This isn't what it looks like," she said quickly. He watched for a minute, then looked at her. "Ma'am, do you have permission to be on this property?" I assumed. "That's a no." "I'm on the HOA board," she said. "This isn't a criminal matter. You unlawfully entered a private residence, parked your vehicle without consent, and refused to leave when asked," he said. "That's trespassing." "I didn't refuse," she said. "I was negotiating." The officer turned to me. "Would you like to press charges?" I hesitated, not because I didn't want to. I did, but I also knew the type. Linda wouldn't learn. Not from fines, not from a night in a cell. She needed humiliation. "No charges," I said, "but I want an official report. I want her on record." The officer nodded. "Fair enough." Linda's mouth dropped open. You can't put me on record. I'm a homeowner." He ignored her. Ma'am, I need you to leave now. If you return to this property without written permission, it becomes a criminal matter. Do you understand? She looked at me one last time, not with shame, with hatred, like I was the one who'd wronged her. But she left, slowly, bitterly, her heels scraping the concrete like claws. And when she was gone, I stood in the empty garage and smiled, because for once, she was the one outside looking in. The next day, everything was quiet. No footsteps outside, no mysterious garage door noises, no Camry idling where it shouldn't be. But I wasn't stupid. Linda wasn't the type to walk away quietly. If anything, she'd probably spent the whole night brewing some psychotic explanation in her mind where I was the villain, and she was the poor victim of a tyrannical neighbor who dared lock her away in her time of need. Still, a small part of me hoped that maybe, the cop's warning had done the trick. Spoiler, it hadn't. Around 4:30 p.m., I heard the doorbell. Then knocking. Then more knocking, as in fist on wood, aggressive knocking. I opened the door. Linda stood there, not in her usual HOA outfit, but in something far more theatrical. A navy pantsuit, heels, and a manila folder, clutched tight like it was a search warrant. Her hair was tighter than I'd ever seen it, and her lips were painted a shade of war paint red. Behind her, another woman stood silently. Late 30s, glasses, black slacks, tablet in hand. She didn't introduce herself, didn't smile. Linda didn't wait. "I've brought legal representation." I blinked. "For what?" "For your harassment," she said, voice trembling with forced control. "For unlawful detainment, for public endangerment, and for psychological distress." I looked at the woman behind her. She cleared her throat. "I'm a compliance investigator with the Neighborhood Oversight and Safety Committee." I raised an eyebrow. "That's not a real thing." Linda practically shoved the folder at me. "This is a formal grievance filed with Ridgewater HOA and forwarded to the Civic Liaison team." I didn't take it. Instead, I asked, "Do you have a badge?" "I'm not law enforcement," the woman replied. "Then you can get off my porch." Linda's nostrils flared. "You locked me in a garage. That's imprisonment. You entered my property without permission, twice. That's still no excuse to trap someone." "You trapped yourself," I snapped. Linda took a step forward. "If you don't apologize and sign a statement acknowledging your behavior, I will escalate this to the HOA Legal Advisory Board." "The HOA doesn't have a legal advisory board." "I'm on the HOA." "I know, that's the problem." The woman behind her shifted. "We'd like to resolve this peacefully, but your behavior has created an unsafe and hostile environment for other residents." I stepped outside and pointed across the street. "Ask Mr. Henley. Ask the Vasquezes. Ask anyone on this block who's been screamed at over grass length or garbage bins. You're the unsafe one." Linda's voice rose. "This is retaliation. I parked for 10 minutes. You trespassed, lied, and refused to leave." The woman with the tablet finally spoke, softer this time. "We just want to de-escalate." I crossed my arms. "Then leave." Linda fumed. "You'll regret this. When the board sees how hostile you've become." "I sent the board the footage," I said. "Everything. Both times." "And they responded." Linda paused. "What?" "They issued a statement this morning. You haven't seen it yet?" Her face lost some color. "Yeah," I continued. "Turns out, using the HOA name to intimidate neighbors without actual authority is a violation of your own charter. They called it misrepresentation of function." "I am on the board," she hissed. "Not anymore." Her voice cracked. "You're lying. Check your email." She did, right there on my porch. Eyes darting, scrolling, slowing, stopping. Her breath caught, and for one beautiful, satisfying moment, Linda was speechless. The woman next to her saw it too. She gently touched Linda's arm. "Maybe we should go." Linda blinked fast, like she couldn't believe what she was reading. Then she looked up at me. Not with anger this time, with something closer to fear. You really think you've won?" "No," I said. "I think I finally got my house back." They left. No goodbyes, no final insults. Just heels on concrete, retreating like a bad memory. And for the first time in weeks, the air felt clean again. But the story wasn't over. Because Linda had lost her badge, her title, her grip on control. And people like her, they don't fade out. They flare, just before they burn. I didn't see her for 3 days, and for a while, that felt like peace. No Camry creeping up the driveway, no flyers taped to my door, no fake compliance agents with clipboards and vague threats about bylaws. I caught myself checking the cameras more than usual, expecting her to pop up in the footage like a bad jump scare. But the only things I saw were squirrels, the occasional UPS guy, and Mrs. Vasquez's cat. It felt eerie, like the silence before a thunderstorm. Then on Saturday morning, right when I was settling in with coffee and a book, the storm hit. A loud knock. Not a doorbell. Not a tap. A knock like someone wanted to dent the wood. I opened the door slowly. It wasn't Linda. It was her husband, a man I'd never spoken to, mid-50s, tall, athletic build, hair more gray than black. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be there but had been sent anyway. "Hi," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Morning." He nodded. "I'm Steve, Linda's husband." "Right." He shifted his weight from foot to foot. "Listen, I just wanted to clear the air." She told me what happened. "Which version?" I asked. His lips twitched, a flicker of guilt. "Look, I know she can be intense. That's one word for it. I told her parking in your garage wasn't okay," he said. "I told her she went too far. She's under a lot of stress lately." "Steve," I said, keeping my voice even, "she entered my property without permission, multiple times, lied to the police, tried to gaslight me, and then brought someone pretending to be legal counsel." "I know," he said quickly. "I'm not defending it. I don't want this to escalate." I looked him in the eye. It already did. He didn't argue. "I convinced her to step back," he added. "She's off the board. She's embarrassed." "Good. She won't bother you again." "I hope not, because next time I will press charges." He nodded. "Fair." I studied him for a moment. He looked like a guy who spent half his life apologizing for things he didn't do, just to keep peace at home. I didn't envy him. "I'm not your enemy," he said quietly. "I know," I replied, "but make sure she remembers that I'm not hers either." He gave a slight nod and left. I thought maybe that was the end. It wasn't. That night around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed. A neighbor, Mark, from 4 houses down, sent me a text. "Dude, Linda just left a stack of flyers at everyone's doors. Thought you should know." Attached was a photo. It was a typed letter, clearly written by Linda, titled, "When Neighbors Become Tyrants." In it, she accused me, anonymously of course, of weaponizing private property and creating a hostile atmosphere through legal intimidation. She claimed she had been punished for attempting to uphold community values and warned others to beware of neighbors who use fear to maintain control. I almost laughed. Almost. But the fact that she still saw herself as the victim, that she was willing to drag other people into this, that she used the same HOA language she'd been stripped of, that made my blood boil. I sent the photo to Danny. He replied instantly. "Want me to talk to her?" "No," I typed. "I want it on record." The next morning, I walked straight into the HOA office with 2 copies of the flyer, camera footage of her trespassing, the police report, and a letter of complaint. Gerald, the HOA president, looked exhausted before I even sat down. "She's already been warned," he said. Clearly, it didn't work. "She's not on the board anymore. She's still weaponizing the community." He sighed. "You want her fined?" I looked at him. "I want it to stop." "We'll draft a cease and desist," he said. "Officially. If she distributes anything else, there'll be legal consequences." Good. As I left the office, I passed a corkboard with HOA announcements. Minutes from the last meeting, gardening tips, and in the bottom corner, a note taped up hastily. "We do not support any unauthorized messages distributed by former board members. Please report any such material directly." Linda's empire of HOA control had officially crumbled, but she wasn't done yet, because when someone like her feels cornered, they don't surrender, they strike. It ended not with a scream, but with silence. After the flyers, After the meeting, after the cease and desist, Linda went dark. No sidewalk arguments, no HOA memos with passive-aggressive language about communal values. Not even her usual patrols with the clipboard. It was like someone cut the power to whatever engine kept her running. At first, the neighborhood held its breath. Everyone knew her, or at least knew of her. She had this way of infecting every corner of the block, like mildew. People braced for the next move, the next outburst, the next war. But nothing happened. A week passed, then two, and for the first time in years, Ridgewater felt normal. I still checked the cameras, still scanned the street on my way out, but there was no Camry parked half on the curb, no manicured voice scolding kids for riding bikes. Too fast. Just the quiet hum of real life coming back. Then one morning, a moving truck pulled up in front of Linda's house. I stood at the kitchen window, coffee in hand, and watched as two guys carried box after box out the front door. Linda didn't direct them, didn't micromanage, didn't yell. She just stood on the porch, arms folded, eyes blank. Steve was there too, talking to the driver, tipping in advance. They weren't leaving. Not yet. I could tell. Just preparing, packing down, scaling back, like people who realized the house they built no longer welcomed them. I didn't wave. She didn't look. But in that moment, I felt something strange. Pity? Maybe. But also peace. Linda had built her power on fear. She ruled with authority she didn't have. And for a while it worked. People stayed quiet, avoided confrontation, gave her space. But the second someone told her no, and meant it, everything unraveled. That's the thing about bullies. They don't know what to do when someone pushes back. A few days later, I found something taped to my door. No envelope, no name, just a folded piece of notebook paper. Inside, 3 words written in shaky handwriting. You win, goodbye. I didn't show it to anyone, didn't frame it, didn't save it for evidence. I burned it in the fire pit that night, not out of anger, out of closure. Because some stories don't need a final chapter, just a final breath. And that's what this felt like. The end of a long, petty, ridiculous war over lines that never should have been crossed. Now, the garage stays empty. The cameras still roll, but mostly catch birds. And the keypad, it's been changed, not because I expect anyone to use it again, but because it feels good to know they can't. This is my home, my space, my peace, and no one parks in my garage again.